There we go. Lots of things. Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Okay, now let's do something interesting with this scene. There's lots of targets. Let's shoot something at them. So we're going to go ahead and find the fire function. Okay, so we're going to find a new function, fire. You saw how to create an object before. We'll just create a new object now. We're going to call a couple properties like set height, set position. The camera.getEye call will return exactly where the camera is. There's two functions that are really useful with the camera, getEye and getFocus. Eye is where the camera is, focus is where it's looking. You can get those and set those all you want. I should also mention that the camera class, if it doesn't do something that you specifically want it to do, we also allow access to the core class underneath of there, which you can write your own functions to move it around. So come find us if you want to do that. It's not that hard. So we're going to take the new object. We spawned it right at the camera. And we're going to call apply force. We're going to let physics take care of this. The function mouse.getRay will return a unit vector that is pointing out through the mouse, so wherever the current mouse position's at. And we're going to multiply that by a scalar number, just how fast we want it to go. We're not going to worry about that right now. In addition, we have a class timer, and a timer schedules things to be called later in the future. So this class timer.later will schedule this new function. All this function is going to do is delete the object that we spawned after 10 seconds. So this is pretty straightforward. We're firing a projectile, and 10 seconds later, it's scheduled to be deleted. Okay. So now we want to make the projectile do something interesting whenever it's hit. So we're going to use collision handlers. Basically, you want to just take the current object and call setCollisionHandler and pass it a function. Every time this object collides with something, this function will be called. So let's go ahead and define that function quickly. Okay, so onCollision takes three things. Yourself, the object you collide with, and what kind of collision it was. The kind of collision is basically if the function was called before physics did anything or after physics did anything. So collision type in this instance will be the keyword end. So this is after the force has already been imparted. So the projectile is going to hit it. It's already going to start to move, and then this function will continue. We can retrieve that property we set before. So we can call getProperty, get the current health. If the current health does not equal nil, in lieu of nil means nothing, basically. This is basically just checking to see if the other object has health at all. So if it does have health, you want to decrement it. You want to reset the property back to the object. If the current health is less than 0, then we want to delete the target that we hit and increment some number somewhere. Also, if the health isn't less than 0, we're going to go ahead and call setColor on the object we hit. We're going to define a new color. This is a function similar to vector. It can take 3 numbers or 4 if you want an alpha. But in this case, we want to set it to always have a full red channel, but have the green and the blue be a function of how much health it has left. Finally, at the end of the collision function, we want to destroy the projectile itself. So we call delete self. So let's go see if this works. One other thing to note is that while you're editing these scripts, if you want, you can keep the actual test page open and just refresh the page. And this will automatically pull in all of the changes you've made to your scripts without going to build or begin test. Okay. There we go. So now we have basic projectile shooting. And we're going to spawn some targets, and you should be able to chuck stuff at the targets. There we go. And you can see their colors dependent on how much they've been hit. So yeah, thoroughly entertaining. Okay, so we've noticed that the targets are kind of rolling away and they're kind of hard to hit once they get far away. So let's change that around a bit. I'm going to go ahead and make a function that keeps the targets near the center of the screen, or near the center of the world. So the function I'm going to use is gather targets. So I'm going to find this new function, custom function, and I'm going to use a little for loop to loop through every object in the scene. You can use the get all objects. This will just return a Lua list or a Lua table of it. If it has a health property, so if it is a target, then you want to apply a force that is the opposite direction of its position. This will basically just apply a small force always back to the center. Now, this gather targets function, if I call it once, it'll apply a small force and then it won't do anything. Then it'll keep rolling away. So what we want is this gather targets to be called every frame. So how we do that is we go back up to the on-scene start. So this is the function it's called in the very beginning. And we're going to go ahead and add a timer.every. This will straight out call this function every 1/10 of a second in this case. So the second range is seconds. So now this timer.every will apply a small force using gather targets every 1/10 of a second and move them all back towards the center. Okay. So let me demo this real quick. Create a bunch of them. There we go. Now we should be able to shoot them all away, and they'll all slowly start coming back to the center. Or at least none of them will roll off into the distance. See, he's trying, but he'll come back. They always come back. There we go. See? So that's how you use a timer.every. The timer.every is very useful if you want a main loop in your program. If you guys have used other programs before that require a main loop, just create a function and just schedule a timer.every for it. It's pretty straightforward.